We are thankful that you are here today, in person or through live stream, to help us celebrate Sydney's life. Having lived in 6 different states, both Sid and Mary were blessed to have so many good people in their lives. There were many opportunities to develop good friendships. If Sid were here today, he would enjoy seeing and visiting with each of you. We are blessed to have you here and look forward to enjoying the afternoon with you.
Hear these words as the writer of Ecclesiastes reminds us of what time gives us. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. What gain have the workers from their toil? I have seen the business that God has given to everyone to be busy with. He has made everything suitable for its time. Moreover, he has put a sense of past and future in their minds. Yet they cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. We gather today in this service of worship and remembering, in celebration and thanksgiving to God for the life of Sidney Charles Walston. Let us pray. Great God, we praise you for those dear to us, and especially we thank you for Sid. Although we mourn, we also celebrate what he achieved and the legacy he leaves. We remain ever grateful for being blessed by his leadership, his friendship, and for the many gifts he gave to us. His radiance shone in a life well lived and in the many lives he touched. We are grateful for the way you led Sid throughout his life, for what he stood, and for the memories we cherish, praying all our prayers through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Time
On June 17th, 1939, Grace and Charles Walston were married. A short time later, on October 3rd, 1940, they were blessed with the birth of twins, Sidney and his sister Sandra. They were born at home on the farm, and there was no electricity or running water. The house was heated with small oil stoves, and Grace had wanted the baby's room to be nice, so she took some old sheets and traced Disney characters with crayon, then pressed the crayon into the sheet using an iron and some wax paper. The printed sheets were turned into curtains in the bedroom. Sid came into the world first. The story is he was taking up too much room and Sandy kicked him out. Sandy continued to boss him around throughout their childhood. In November of 1944, their brother Steve was born. By this time, the house had electricity and running water. Grace once described the difference between her boys. If they came upon a puddle, Steve would look at the puddle and figure out the most efficient way to get to the other side. Sid would just fight his way through. The family lived on a 365-acre farm that was purchased by Charles and his brother Dean from their father. They ran 250 hogs and 100 head of cattle. All of the crops they grew were to feed the livestock. The farm also had a working quarry. So life on this farm was hard work. The kids helped with livestock and crops. And when Sid was in high school, he worked in the quarry, hauling loads of rock out of it and tapping holes in the rock to set dynamite. Growing up on the farm, there was no TV, and the family would spend their time in front of the radio. They loved shows like The Lone Ranger, Green Hornet, and The Adventures of Topper. There were many evenings playing pinochle, hearts, euchre, and bridge. In the winter, the boys would go to the gas station to play euchre. These were affectionately called rich games. It cost a dime to buy in, a nickel if you got a set, and if a spade was up, everyone had to get one trick, and if you didn't, it cost you a nickel. The kids had a little blind Shetland pony named Zip, and they loved riding him around the farm. There was a river on the farm, and they also enjoyed casting a line and catching fish. Life was simple, yet very full for Sidney, Sandra, Steve, and their parents. In 1951, the family moved to the nearby town Manchester, Iowa, and the kids transferred from a country school to the Manchester school system. When Sid was in high school, he became a wrestler and was very good at it.
Now Sid's youngest brother, Steve, will say a few words.
I've never been known for a few words. I've been told I have 15 minutes.
15, not 50.
I brought a timer. I'm blind, so I brought a timer set for 13. If that goes off, I have 2 minutes left. If it doesn't go off, you're in trouble. By the way, I can neither confirm nor deny that story about Sandra kicking him out. I can confirm that over the years we all lived together until Sandra got married and moved out. She almost always got away with Sid. but she did it in a very nice way. She always just had a smile and a little laugh, and it was almost impossible to say no. I think we ought to talk just a touch about what it was like back when Sid and Sandy in 40, right, when they were born. World War II had just got started. You see, the runs in the bank had not been too long before that. Depression had not been too long before that. Stock market had crashed not too long before that. Money was really tight. Once you got into World War II, production of cars and things people needed got a little tight because everything switched over to a wartime economy. So we were there. We didn't have any money, but we were rich. We were rich in land, we were rich in family, we were rich in fun things that we did as kids. Even, you know, Amos and Andy on the radio. You couldn't play that one today, but it was fun back then. So we had a good time. We were poor, but we didn't know it. Everybody was the same. We had a garden that was about an acre, and we raised almost every vegetable that we needed for the next year. You know, sweet corn, 2 kinds of string beans, yellow and green, and peas, and tomatoes, and cucumbers, and squash, and all that stuff. And it was a big effort to can all that stuff and get it down into the basement. Most of that went to the ladies. In fact, the norm of the year was moms and daughters worked the house, did all the canning, did the stuff in the house that needed to be done. Dad and the boys did the work outside. If you were young enough, particularly if you were a boy, you could mess around till you were, I don't know, 7 or 8. But once we started working in the fields, which would occur probably, 10, 11, it became 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, no exceptions. I don't ever remember going on vacation with Mom and Dad when Sid and Sandy were around. So we worked a lot, but we had a lot of fun. So let me tell you a couple of stories about Sid. I don't know, some of you folks know him pretty well. You probably already know. He could be pretty, I think I heard Eldon say one day that he could be intense. I'm not sure that's what the right word was, but I'm sure that's what the meaning was. He just would, his priority list on working out, doing anything, was get her done, get it done okay, and have fun doing it if at all possible. And that seemed to work out pretty well for him, but occasionally it would blow up in his face. Sid and I were working out in the field, and every field had a little area where it would get wet. The water just wouldn't drain out of it, and so you'd have kind of a muddy area. And say if you were cultivating and you tried to go through that, you could get stuck. Sid knew that. I knew that. I was smart enough. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I would just pull up and go around it, like they claimed, which wasn't always true. But Sid, his first priority, remember, get her done, and the best way to get her done is straight through that mud puddle. And he almost always made it. I mean, he was impressive. He was really strong, really fast reflexes, really good at doing all that, except he didn't always make it. One day he got stuck. The tractor was on its belly. The wheels would turn just fine. They'd throw up mud and water, but it was just stuck. Well, I had the little tractor, and it wasn't going to be big enough to pull it out. We were lucky. A friend of ours, another young man down the road, he was between Sid's age and my age, was going by in an Oliver tractor. It was practically new, really a nice tractor, pretty good size. We flagged him down, and he came in to help us. We gave him a log chain and say, hook her up. He did. He got stuck. Now we got 2 tractors stuck. It's bad enough that our tractor's stuck, but the other one's practically new. But he almost was out far enough, so I was able to hook it up with a small tractor, get another log chain, unhook him from Sid, and pulled him out. So that worked okay. And then we were smart enough to give him 2 chains to get him out where he had some power to actually pull something, and he got Sid out. We never told Dad about that. It didn't really make any difference. For about the next 5 years, you could see those tracks where Sid had tried to get through and didn't make it, and they were about 4 or 5 feet deep. I truly thought that John Deere tractor was going to come out on the other side of the earth in China. It was bad. So, you know, sometimes it would get him in trouble. And then if you played cards with him, I'm sure you've seen him. He has this impish, is that a word? Impish little smile. And he'll look at you, and he'll look at his partner, whoever that is, and then he'll say, he went set. So he wants to say something about that. And what he says is, you know, Eldon, or Matt, or Brad, or whomever, if you'd have had a little better cards, we'd have made that hand. And he'd smile. And he didn't do that out of meanness. He just did that out of fun. In fact, there's some card decks I think are being handed out at some point that don't say that. It's a surprise. Wow, I didn't know that. That's too bad, because I was going to say that before I ever saw him. All right, we'll come back. We'll come back. Okay, so that's kind of a normal thing that you've seen a lot. Let me tell you one story about, we had an old car, and Sid and I were at our cousin's house, and we had to go back into town. We lived in town at the time, and to get there, you had to go up and over the Illinois Central Railroad by a viaduct. This is on US 20, back in the 50s, early 60s. And that's the main U.S. road across Iowa before Interstate 80 was built. So he likes to go fast. I did make that point, didn't I? So we've come over the railroad tracks, and we're headed down, and we're starting, and there's a 90-degree curve that goes around, and it goes downhill all the way around the curve. And we've got this really old farm car. And he looks at me and says, let's see how fast it'll go. Now he's, in his mind, keep in mind, he's immortal. I'm somewhat that way, but not totally. I'm only nervous. So he floors this thing, and it starts rolling, and you can feel it's getting a little bit bumpy. And you know, I never, ever remember my folks taking an old car to a garage to get the dad burn wheels balanced or lined. And I'm sure these old tires in this old old Hudson hadn't been that way for a long time. So he's into this corner, and it's gaining speed, and those wheels are bouncing around. And you can see it. If you can't see the wheels, you can see it in the steering wheel. It's bouncing around. He goes faster, it bounces harder. It's harder, it bounces. He continues to accelerate all the way around the corner. In fact, when we get to the end, I swear that front end is going to set some sort of record on a high jump over the front wheels of the car and the road, or bump or something like that. It was terrible. I never really thought too much about that. I was never scared. He never even thought about being scared. But a few years later, I was thinking, you know, there was a bunch of signs on the other side of the street. They were all lined up. I don't know, 4, 5, 6, something like that. And they all had this little cross on them. Well, it seems like in Iowa, they put those things there whenever there was an accident and somebody died. So there were at least 4 or 5 or 6 people there that didn't prove to be immortal coming around that corner. I think the Lord was with us that day, and we thank him for it. So the other thing I want to tell you is how much we love fishing and how we started. Mom took us down to the creek. It wasn't a river, it was really just a creek, and gave us a small stick and a string, which was a fish line. And we'd tie a hook on the end of it, tie it onto the little stick. And if you want to sink it, you found a rock that wasn't too slippery and tied it on and threw it in. You'd be amazed at how many rock bass and bluegill we could catch, and occasionally a nice sucker, which was really fun to catch but wasn't any good to eat. So starting at that point, we continued, both Sid and I continued to fish, for the rest of our lives, really. And he and I, whenever we had an opportunity, we always fished together, and we always had a lot of fun doing that. It was really good fun. And growing up on the farm, the other thing we learned early in life is how to hunt rabbits and pheasants and squirrels. I've got pictures of Dad with his brother and his cousin with rabbits. We've got pictures of Sid and I with rabbits and pheasants. And it was just something that we did our entire little time that we lived on the farm, and really had a good time doing that. I guess in short, it didn't go off, but I'm getting dirty looks from my wife, even though I can't see them. I can feel them. I can feel them. I just want to say this about Sid. He made life growing up fun. He taught me a lot of things, taught me a lot about fishing. He taught me how to smoke. I probably shouldn't tell you that. Back then, 90% of the men smoked, and a bunch of the women smoked too. He took me fishing one night, and we stopped at a little store, and he went in and bought something and came out, and we went fishing. And later that night, the mosquitoes were kind of bad, and he reaches in and gives me this stogie. I got to tell you what, it was good. You may think that smoking stogies is kind of hard, but it wasn't. This was a Swisher Sweet. I think it's rolled in rum or something like that. It was really good. See, he taught me a lot of stuff like that. So growing up, we had so much fun. Played cards all the time, did the fishing, did the hunting. And when Dad took him down to start school at Iowa, Dad took him down and dropped him off and left. Can you imagine doing that today? I mean, just dropped him off. He's 17 years old, doesn't know anything about going down to school, hardly ever left town, and he drops him off in Iowa City and leaves. Dad was really pretty good, but that was one time I thought he might have been wrong. So Sid remembered that, and when I started school down there, he was down there for one more semester. He came up and got me, came and showed me where to live. He'd already arranged for the living space. It was off campus. He'd gotten a job for me over at the hospital, University of Iowa Hospital. Paid 85 cents an hour. I worked for 3/4 of an hour and got 65 cents a day, but I could eat on it as long as I eat at the hospital. But he really did take care of me, and we just had a great time. So I'm going to miss him a lot. Thank you.
After high school, Sid attended the State University of Iowa, or you may know it as University of Iowa. He also wrestled in college. His senior year, he was captain of the team and placed third in the Big Ten, which was a huge accomplishment. Sid loved his college years. As freshmen, Mary and Sid were in the Western Civilization class together. Mary sat in the front row, and of course, Sid sat in the back row. Sid said it was Mary's beautiful smile that caught his attention. In the fall of 1959, Sid returned from wrestling practice, and his roommate said there was a dinner and a mixer with the nursing dorm that evening, and he wanted to know if Sid would be interested in going. Normally, Sid would have said no, but for some reason this time he said yes. Mary was at the dinner, and that is where they became more acquainted. Mary and Sid started dating, and many of the dates were to the medical library in the hospital because it was closer than the main library across the river. Sid worked at delivering trays to patients in the hospital from 6 to 8 in the morning and earned a whopping 65 cents an hour. Since there wasn't any inflation at the time, Sid could buy a good evening meal for 65 cents. Mary and Sid both worked in the hospital, and they would often have their evening meal together there. Sid and Mary were married on September 1st, 1962, after Mary's graduation. The reception took place in Mary's folks' yard and was a beautiful place to have a reception. After it, they took their honeymoon in Colorado. Sid graduated from the University of Iowa in the spring of 1963. In 1968, both Sid and Mary received their master's degree from Northwest Missouri State University. In the fall of 1963, they moved to Polo, Illinois, where Sid had his first teaching and coaching position in the high school, and Mary worked in the hospital in Dixon, Illinois. Their daughter, Lisa, was born in Wisconsin in 1964, and in 1966, they moved to Kansas City, where Sid had an NSF grant in biology, and Mary taught in a nursing program in Kansas City. In 1967, they moved to Maryville, Missouri, where Sid had a one-year temporary teaching and coaching job at Northwest Missouri State University. Since Sid was on the faculty, both Sid and Mary could continue their education there for free. Mary was able to complete her master's in psychology, and Sid completed his master's in health education. In 1968, Mary, Sid, and Lisa moved to Reedsburg, Wisconsin for a year. Sid taught biology and coached the wrestling team in the local high school. In October, he was offered a full-time position back at Northwest Missouri State University. In 1969, their son Jeff was born in St. Joseph, Missouri, and in 1970, they moved to Salt Lake City, where Sid completed work for a PhD. While in Utah, they bought an old Airstream and remodeled it. The family spent much time camping in the mountains around Utah and the neighboring states. There were many fond memories of buckwheat pancakes and bacon cooked over the open fire in the morning. They later bought a tent and spent several summers camping out in the Rocky Mountains. Many trips were taken with Steve, Lola, Brad, and Scott, and lots of fun was had exploring. After 30 years of teaching and leading the Department of Health Education, Sid and Mary retired. They explored several areas in Michigan and decided to buy property and build a home in Frankfort, Michigan. They built their house in 1994 and moved to Frankfort as their primary residence in 2000. They enjoyed the beautiful views from the big windows of their house. And over the years, Sid worked hard sculpting his land to enhance the view. Many beautiful sunsets were seen over the years, and Sid enjoyed watching the fishing boats go in and out of the bay. Their retirement enjoyment came in the form of fishing, playing cards, and exploring the area. In 2018, Mary started showing signs of dementia. The disease progressed to Alzheimer's. She died in June of 2023. Sid took care of her and loved her until the very end. They would take walks, put puzzles together, drive around, and look for deer in the evening. Even though she did not know his name eventually, she knew he was her man. After Mary died, their son Jeff came to live with Sid to help around the house and to help with daily tasks. Sid enjoyed very much having Jeff in Frankfurt. Their time together was spent working in the yard, fishing, watching sports, and playing cards. Over the years, Sid and Mary made some very good friends wherever they lived. And while living in the Frankfurt area, Sid and Mary made a lot of good friends, too. Dee and Eldon Miller were among those friends. They traveled together to the Grand Caymans and Alaska. Sid said many times that the trip to Alaska was one of his favorites. They stayed at various bed and breakfasts, played a lot of cards at night, explored and fished during the day. Sid enjoyed life. He enjoyed his friends and family. Fishing, playing cards, being on his John Deere tractor all brought him such joy. He would be so honored to know that you all are here today to celebrate his life. He lived a full life, and it was a life lived with purpose.
Sadly, there is a section of the slides that was not played. It's the ones about their time in Mount Pleasant and Central Michigan University. In 1971, the department that Sid taught in was named the School of Health. It was a relatively small department, but Frank Myers was the chairman. And over the next years, the department grew. They added public health, exercise science, hospital administration, physical therapy, which eventually became its own department, physician assistant program, a school of health professions, audiology and speech, and later, after Sid retired, a medical school and a BSN in nursing was added. Let's see, they were also later in their lives in the 80s, Mary and Sid were asked by a Mosby representative if they would be interested in writing a test bank for an anatomy physiology text with which they were familiar. They did that. It was a huge undertaking, and the instructor's manual and the test bank was published in 1987. Every year there were students who would give reviews of the faculty, and Sid took those reviews very seriously. One of his favorite reviews of him was about a young man who said, "You are a tough son of a," but I learned a lot. In Sid's thoughts, this was high praise. He had one student that was not very confident in himself, but he was getting very good grades in all of his classes, and Sid met with him and asked him what he thought his future would be like. This young man was not sure what he wanted to do, but Sid told him he thought he should consider becoming a doctor and to go to medical school. Today, he's a doctor in the northern Michigan area. Awesome. We really need good doctors here, too. Sid's long suit was to always have the best interest of the student in mind. And one piece of advice he would give his predecessor as chairman of the department was, "You will have many difficult decisions to make. Just remember that if your decision sides on the benefit of the student, you will have made the right decision." Dr. Mark Schwick is here from Central Michigan University to make a few remarks for you.
Well, thank you very much. When I think about Sid and Mary, I think of them as a match set. You can't talk about Sid without talking about Mary. You can't talk about Mary without talking about Sid. And that certainly was true at CMU. I was the individual, by the way, I made a switch over from working at the hospital. I was the president of Central Michigan Hospital, and I started teaching part-time, and then ended up switching over to full-time as a faculty member. And Sid mentored me quite a bit. One of the things that he said to me coming on board is that there will be times when a tough faculty vote will be taken, or there will be chances to influence policy or program development. And he said, honestly, he said, always default to what's best for the students. He said, when you look at yourself in the mirror the next morning when you're shaving, you're going to feel a lot better about yourself. And that was really, really good advice. One of the really remarkable things as I think back, so I came on board. We started the health administration program with an undergraduate, the bachelor's degree, and then a couple of years after that, we were working on, what at the time was a very unique program. There's a Doctor of Health Administration degree program. It's mostly online, but with face-to-face seminars on weekends and other opportunities for the students to actually get together, but most of it was online, so it was a very unique kind of program. And I'll never forget that it was the confluence of two deans. We had Del Ringquist, who was the dean of the College of Extended Learning, and we had our founding dean of the College of Health Professions, Steve Kopp. And we were in a meeting with Sid. Sid was the chair of our department, and he had a way. He was a stubborn kind of guy, but he had an affable way about him to get people to come around to see his way of doing things. A little joke here, a little poke here, you know. And so we were in a conference room, and the two deans ended up agreeing that we were going to have the best Doctor of Health Administration program in the country. They weren't going to worry about who owned it at the time. That would figure that out over time. And if you know anything about academia, that's like amazing. But then the next thing, I almost fell out of my chair when they said, and let's go out and recruit the very best in the country, and we're not going to worry about how much it costs us. I think that was the only time I've ever heard that in my years in academia. But we went at it with that kind of gusto, and it was Sid who helped marshal that along, and I'm always grateful for that. I guess one of the other things that I really appreciate about Sid and Mary, Sid as the chair was really the more outgoing person, and he could say sometimes things that were like kind of funny, but maybe kind of, like I said, poking at somebody a little bit. Mary was more reserved, and she kind of sat there, and they shared an office together too, right? So when he might say something that she kind of like the antennas went up, like, okay, she would just simply look at him and stare at him. And he'd catch that, and then he'd kind of recalibrate and, you know, fix it up from there. Wonderful, beautiful couple. I have so many great memories of him inviting us up to their place and fishing with what was then our young man. Now he's a graduate student at Penn State, and how these years go by, it's absolutely amazing. But my life and his has been very much influenced by his mentorship. I'll be always grateful for that. And an extraordinary couple, and I'm just so glad they're together now.
Would you come to the mic to read? Oh, sure. Please.
Can I drink the water too? Sorry. Yeah. This is from the College of Health Professions, or actually the Herbert H. and Grace A. Dow College of Health Professions. We were the first named college at Central Michigan University, so it was quite special for Sid and all of us to be a part of that. So it's a proclamation. To the Walston family, Thank you for sharing Sid and Mary's time and talents with the Central Michigan University family from August 15th, 1971 to January 1st, 2001. With sincere gratitude and appreciation, the faculty and staff of the School of Health Sciences and the Herbert H. and Grace A. Dow College of Health Professions. May their legacy continue to inspire and encourage students long into the future. May 4th, 2025.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Tom Masterson, and I might be the last person that Sid actually hired at CMU. I was there in 1999, and of course, you know, they retired in 2001. And when Sid retired, he actually gave me his regalia for graduation. So every single graduation I've been at since 2001, I've worn his regalia. So think about that. I've gone to a lot of graduations in 25 years, too many, by the way. Anyway, so I'm grateful for that. Every time I put it on, I think of your family and what a great influence they've been on too many people. I mean, we can't, there's just so much you could say about those two folks that it's just wonderful. My thing today is really to present Lisa and Jeff with what we call angel wings. So these are like little pieces of ornaments that you can put someplace in your house, and when you see them, think about your parents, think about what they've meant not only to you, but also to everybody else in this room, and the countless people who can't be here today that they've influenced. Both of my parents are gone. My sister has one. I've got one. It's by my computer at home. I can't miss it. Every time I see my computer, there it is, and fond memories come back. So it's really kind of an emotional connection. You know, I wish they could be big and gold and worth a lot of money, but it's an emotional thing, right? And that really means much more than any kind of monetary value. Mary, I got to say, her and her nursing push, we finally have a nursing program at CMU after 45 years of trying. And of course, we want to thank the Walston family for their contribution to the scholarships they've started, and your legacy will go on forever. So with that, thank you very much.
The best people in the world don't only receive angel wings after they've died, but wear them in this life. And so about 8 years ago, my husband died suddenly, and I had a tree in my backyard that needed attention. And over came Sid and Eldon on Sid's big tractor and cut it down. Mary was there too, as well as Dee, and I have pictures from that day. It was a day like today with bright sunshine, and it's a very, very fond memory, a time when they truly wore angel wings for me and my family. Sid's retirement years wouldn't have been the same without some of his friendships, and one of them that meant a great deal to him was with Eldon Miller. And so Eldon has a few words now to say.
Well, this is really a celebration. Amen. Steve, I really appreciated your remarks. He loved the farm. And of course, he loves John Deere tractors. He's got 2 of them. We had so much fun, and ordinarily, when Sid and I are together, I would not be dressed like this at all. But today, it's black and gold. out of respect for his love of the Hawkeyes and what it meant there. We had so much fun together. It's just hard to put it into words, but I'm going to try to give you a few high points. I'm in the grocery in Frankfurt one day. I got my Northern Iowa hat on, and this guy kind of bumps into me, and he says, "You from Iowa?" I said, "Well, I worked there a few years. I still work there part-time." He said, "I'm from Iowa." I said, "You are?" He said, "Yep. Went to University of Iowa, wrestled there, showed me his ring right away." He's pretty proud of that ring. I said, "Wow." He said, "Well, we ought to get together." I said, "Well, that'd be great." I said, "Where are you?" He said, "Well, I'm living in a tent. Up where they have a house now, wasn't built." He said, "Yeah, but come on up." So he's a farm boy, right? The next morning, it's 8 a.m. Dee and I go up there. The tent's there, but there's nobody around. He and Mary are still asleep at 8 a.m. I mean, he had to convince me that he was really a farmer. We have many travels together. I'm going to highlight a few things. I found out right away that he loved John Deere. I don't think it's true anymore, but I'm in the house, he turns on his computer, and it sounds like a two-cylinder John Deere. But we had a lot of common background. He learned how to work. He just loved Steve, what he told us about you, his family, talked about all the time. But we traveled. Sid was very competitive his whole life. That never changed. I don't care if it was fishing, he wanted to catch the first fish. And he wanted to catch more fish than you caught. And I guarantee in bridge, he never had a hand that he didn't think he could bid on. And he loved to win it. Anything he did. And we worked together so many things. We cut a lot of wood for bacon together with a bunch of other guys. We had a lot of fun cutting wood. With Sid, it's how many trees he could cut up faster than anybody else. I was finishing a guest house about the same time he was finishing his second garage, because he needs 2 garages for all the things that he has. He helped me side my guest house, build my deck. I helped him side his garage. And I had a suspicion if you're a wrestler, you might not be the smartest person in the world, since I was a basketball guy. And he had tried to prove that to me one day, working on the siding, because he's standing on top of a stepladder. Now, you can't be too smart to stand on top of a stepladder. But when we first got together, he was very strong physically. We had a lot of fun together, we cut trees, and I couldn't believe Pastor Ann says, "Well, I got this tree I'm worried about in my house." So I went and told Sid. He said, "Well, I'll take the big tractor over there." So he's driving this 2-cylinder from Frankfurt to Benzonia on the highway. But we got the trees down, and he moved a lot of wood. One story about competing in fishing. We toured Alaska together, stayed in a lot of bed and breakfast. We had a wonderful time. But he and I decided we're going to go fishing. So we get on one of these boats and go out there, about 16 to maybe 20 people on this boat, trying to catch halibut. And of course, you're only allowed 2, and you only got so much time to catch him before we go back. Okay? So the 2 of us are here, he's there, I'm standing here, we got our lines over there. Beside Sid is a young lady who's probably 13, maybe. And her father's on the other side. And Sid now, he thinks he's a pretty good fisherman now. I mean, it's not like he's an amateur. Well, our 2 lines are in the water for a long time, and this young lady's got 2 in the boat. And I'm telling you, that was tough. But we survived it. We did catch them, and we took them across the street and had a restaurant cook one for us, and it's the only time in my life, Sid and I together, that he ever ate fish. He loved to fish, but he did not eat fish. He would throw them back. And fishing out of Frankfurt was a lot of fun with Sid. He had a pretty nice boat. Mary would drive, typically. And he loved to fish at night, and he loved to come back into Frankfurt when the lights were on. As Frankfurt's a beautiful town, but he loved that. And he had a great time. We had a great time. We didn't catch much fish. I've got to be honest with you. The last 3.5 years have not been easy. They've not been easy. Because 2.5 years ago at least, Mary was getting sick. And he's a very close friend of mine, but I'm telling you, he's not the most patient person in the world. But with his wife, he's as good as it'll ever get. And it wasn't always easy for him to get around because his legs were not that good at that point in time. But fortunately, his son Jeff and his daughter Lisa would be there when it was real tough. She'd drop whatever she's doing and come. And Jeff was there, taking them on for walks. And after he lost Mary, Jeff was there all the time, helping out. And that doesn't surprise me, because the whole Walston family are friends of mine. And then, you know, Album wrote a book called Tuesdays with Maury. I had coffee with Sid a lot. Everybody thought, boy, that's really nice of you. Let me tell you something. I loved it. We were friends. Great friends. And I'm telling you, the world's a lot better because of our discussions. Sid loved a lot of things, but he loved the United States of America. He loved the Constitution. He's not big with blatant liars. He had no patience with blatant liars. And he understood that all politicians stretch the truth. But you don't outright lie time and again. And I'll tell you that's exactly where he was. He said, you know, in government, you know, it's not about pointing fingers, it's about what has to happen in this country. And Sid was education-minded. He loved teaching. And he just felt public education had failed youth. Not teaching them about democracy. Not teaching them about their responsibilities. Not teaching them about the rule of law. That's where he was. We didn't always agree. But I'll tell you one thing, I knew where he stood. I knew exactly where he stood. And I had a pretty good idea about how. We've been close to the whole family. But coffee with him, basically, we talked about family. We talked about government. We spent probably more time on education. And one of the things he really felt is we've done a very poor job in poverty areas. He said, you and I were blessed with great education, but people in poverty areas, and we complain about, and he said, you complain about welfare, you complain about crime, you complain about dysfunctional families, complain about all that stuff, because people don't learn to work, they don't learn about the government, they don't learn about opportunity. That was it. When we talk about religion, we talked about religion a lot. He said, you know, we got all these Christian churches, they all going by different names. He said, they're all trying to do the same thing. We got the church of this, the church of that, the Moravians, the Methodists, the Episcopalians. All these people are Christian. Why don't they get together? No. You could talk about that. He said, whatever happened to one nation under God, indivisible? Whatever happened to that? Where'd that go? That was it. To me, Sid is the salt of the earth. I have to explain what that means to me, and I'll turn it over. He lived the power of love. Now his neighbors up there, his neighbor's called Sid. Virginia's 90, lived across the street. She has a problem. She calls Sid. The guy up the road is calling Sid. No. And he would go. To me, someone who lives and talk about it. He doesn't talk about it. Someone who lives the power of love is the salt of the earth. And that's my friend, Sid Walston.
And that's the best sermon I've heard in a long time. Let us pray. O God, before whom generations rise and pass away, we praise you for all your servants, who, having lived this life in faith, now live eternally with you. Especially today, we thank you for Sid. We praise you for the gift of his life, for all in him that was good and kind and faithful, for the good humor you gave him and the mischievous twinkle he had in his eyes. We remember with gratitude the mark he made in our lives and in the world, for being able to see a vision and to bring it to reality. We are grateful for the grace you gave him that kindled in him the love of your name, which was foundational to his life. We thank you that for Sid, death is past and pain ended, and that he has now entered the joy you have prepared. Bless his family with your peace, especially his beloved children, Lisa and Jeff, his grandchildren, Emily and Grace, his great-grandchildren, Levi and Carter, whom Sid loved with a deep love. Surround each of them with comfort and healing. Lift sorrow and give us good hope, so we may bravely walk our earthly way and look forward to glad reunion in the life to come. We commend to you, gracious God, our beloved Sidney Charles Walston. Receive him into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the glorious company of the saints in light. Amen.
I can only imagine what it will be like when I walk by your side. I can only imagine what my eyes will see when your face is before me. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine when that day comes and I find myself standing in the sun. I can only imagine when all I would do is forever, forever worship you. I can only imagine, yeah. I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. Surrounded by your glory, what will my heart feel? Will I dance for you, Jesus? Or in awe of you be still? Will I stand in your presence? Or to my knees will I fall? Will I sing hallelujah? Will I be able to speak at all? I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. I can only imagine when all I would do is forever, forever worship you. I can only imagine.